Happy 2025, everybody. I hope this year is starting well for you guys. I hope you had a splendid 2024. I know I did, specifically when watching movies. If you didn't read the title, this is my top 10 movies of 2024. I have been keeping track of all the movies that I've seen throughout the year, and I'm just super excited to share this with you guys because when starting back on this channel, one of the main motives was that I wanted to be a little bit more personal with you guys, more than I was on my last channel that I did. So this will give you kind of an insight as to what movies that I like. A lot of the movies are from different genres on this list, but you're gonna notice some reoccurring themes that I'm really excited, and people who know me, they'll probably be like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like Corbin likes that. And also I just want to state real quick, if there is a movie on this list that like isn't on the list, it's probably due to the fact that I just didn't see the movie. It's funny because Lisa and I had to go watch 3 different movies this week to make sure that I at least included those or mentioned them on the list if I liked them or not. And yeah, no, I think that they definitely merited being on some of the lists. I'm actually going to talk about honorable mentions in this video. I think that's going to be really cool. I don't actually know how many honorable mentions I have. Let me check real quick. Oh, wow. I actually have 13 honorable mentions. So yeah, I'm going to read out these honorable mentions, and after that, we're going to start with my top 10 movies of 2024. Arcadia was a compelling story of 2 brothers and a father played by Nicolas Cage in a post-apocalyptic aftermath that displays the most unique creature design that I've seen in a while. In a Violent Nature fed my appetite for slashers this year by delivering an installment with a creative twist, a horror movie from the perspective of the killer. Kinds of Kindness's unexpected turn into the anthology genre sparked conversations of themes of abuse and manipulation and the true intentions of others' good deeds. Stop motion showcased the possible realities of releasing one from strict bottlenecking of certain authority, thus creating unhinged psychopathic creations through the art of stop motion animation. Abigail was a nice addition to the vampire genre, leaving me awaiting the next project from Radio Silence. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was the film that 6-year-old me has been waiting for 23 years, delivering video game nostalgia and the unexpected desire of Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog. Also, real quick. Represent. Inside Out 2, although not as impactful as the first, had a lot to say about the effects of anxiety and the struggles of juggling our social lives as we grow up. Flow was a beautiful animated film that relied heavily on visual storytelling due to having no cast, which was very fitting for a film centered around animals surviving a global flood. This film is the closest we as an audience have to an adaptation of the video game Stray. Civil War was a melancholy depiction of a what-if future that displayed the harsh realities and numbness of war photographers. Longlegs was a modern-day spiritual successor to Silence of the Lambs. I loved the usage of close wide shots and its cinematography to display the uncomfortable atmosphere associated with a creepy performance by Nicolas Cage. Heretic was a dialogue-driven psychological thriller with commentary that questions the plot holes of religion, electrically delivered by Hugh Grant. Saturday Night was a thriller comedy that reminded me of the time crunches involved with live performances in show business and made me appreciate the craft even more. And Nosferatu was a fine installment in the vampire genre, delivering spectacle set designs and an unrecognizable performance from Bill Skarsgård. So yeah, those were my honorable mentions. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with my top 10 films of 2024. Maxine. I loved this film. I don't think I loved it as much as X or Pearl. When I describe this trilogy, X has the best story, Pearl has the best performance, and Maxine has the best setting. I loved the 80s aesthetic and it exploring kind of like the murders that were happening around the 80s and in Hollywood, specifically with the Night Stalker. I've seen the Night Stalker documentary on Netflix, and I think that was why I was so pumped to see this movie in particular. And there's just a lot of cool scenes that take place in a VHS store, even a murder that happens in a VHS store, which I don't know, I just fell in love with the 80s aesthetic. And Ty West is just so good at making these authentic movies that feel like they are from the time period that they are set in. Whereas X was set in the 1970s because it was paying homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Pearl was clearly a depiction of the Wizard of Oz, and this movie was clearly just a homage to the 80s, and I absolutely loved it. I also just love the running themes of this trilogy and what it's trying to say in terms of like youth and, you know, wanting to be famous and sexual desires and stuff like that. I think there's a lot to say throughout these films, and they're very much prevalent through each installment. So yeah, Ty West, please make more movies in this nature. I love your aesthetic, and I want more. Wicked. I did not think that this was a movie that I wanted to see. Clearly this was something that I saw because Lisa wanted to see it, but it really got me interested in the lore of the Wizard of Oz again. Like, I don't know, I just feel like we kind of take the Wizard of Oz for granted nowadays, where we recognize that it was this important film that came out that introduced color and everything. I didn't know a whole lot about Wicked. I just knew that it was a very successful Broadway musical, the most successful, I think. And I liked how the film is introducing this very compelling story to an audience that may not live in New York or live near musicals. I like how we're seeing that nowadays. Hopefully we'll get like a Book of Mormon musical turned into a movie. I think that'd be pretty successful. But I don't know, when I was watching the film and I saw what they were going for, and then I recognized that it was a part 1 movie and they're doing part 2 next year, I am so excited for part 2, and I can't wait to see how they bring in the other characters from the Wizard of Oz. There were parts in the film where I nudged over to Lisa. I was like, is that who I think it's supposed to be? And she nodded her head. I was like, oh, they're doing that. So, and obviously the soundtrack is amazing. We've been listening to it repetitively, and the memes regarding the movie of how everyone is at these sing-alongs. It's just, I don't know, it feels very similar to that of like something's happening at the movie theaters again. Like, you know, last year we had Oppenheimer and Barbie, and it just feels like there's something happening at the movie theaters again. As someone who's not a big musical person, I loved just about every performance in this movie. The soundtrack is great. I can't wait to see what they do for next year. Yeah, Wicked. Did not expect this to be in my list. Holy shit. Alien Romulus. I know there was a lot of back and forth with this movie. I know a lot of people were kind of stating that like the movie is very reliant on nostalgia, and that without like Alien or Aliens, like we wouldn't necessarily have this movie, and it's reliant on just like key things in those films. I don't care. I just really enjoyed this film, and the idea of I don't view it as nostalgia bait. They really just kind of took like the things that we really like about these films. And that's not to say that there's no new aspects that are introduced in Alien Romulus. I really liked the characters and the dynamics of a lot of them, specifically the brother and sister characters. I want to see more for sure. And like I said, it is very nostalgia oriented, but again, I don't view it as that. I view it as we just haven't had a good Alien film in a long time, and this director, Fede Alvarez, obviously just took what he really liked from the Alien franchise and inserted it into this film. This is a good movie. This is a good installment in the Alien franchise, and I did not think that we'd ever see practical effects from specifically the aliens. Like, that's just noteworthy in itself. So good on you, Alien Romulus. Okay, number 7, A Quiet Place Day 1. Yes, so this has been probably the most consistent horror thriller franchise in a while. I loved the first one, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on my channel, maybe a few times. There's some videos from my past, but I love ASMR. I love like a quiet atmosphere and everything, and like, I don't know, I've always also been just interested in like characters who do ASL and stuff like that. There's something very just soothing and relaxing about it. Like, I don't know, it's not overstimulating. So you get that in this film where you have these characters who are trying to be quiet, because if they're not, they'll die, obviously. And the story is very compelling. The idea of how you already know somewhat of this woman's fate, and you're so on board for the fact that she's in New York, and all that she's trying to do is just get like a pizza before like something bad happens to her. And she also has this cat. We're a cat household, so it was just good seeing a movie where the cat doesn't die. That's why we love this film. The cat doesn't die, and it's just a really good thriller in itself. And I cannot wait to see what they do, what else with A Quiet Place, the franchise itself, because this is a really good, consistent franchise. I want to see more for sure. Number 6, The Substance. We did not see this at the movie theaters. We actually had heard about it a little bit later on through memes and other ads. I think it did pretty good in terms of like VOD and stuff like that, which is how we saw it. The Substance is a very interesting film in regards to like youth and desire of youth and growing old and stuff like that. It's a film that is also pretty fucking crazy. Like, it's insane that Demi Moore, the actress that she is, like, would agree to something like this. I love when like actors of like a certain stature get like a script, it's totally bonkers, and they agree to do this film because they get it. It's like they're one of us, like for that brief moment where they accept that script. And it's just a really good body horror film. There is a lot of absurd stuff in the film regarding nudity, which we weren't exactly comfortable with as a couple watching, but it clearly is for the sake of just like exaggerating certain things. And it does have something to say in regards to media and vanity and things of that nature. A lot of people did not like the ending, but I am just one of those people who just loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Just this shot alone of, I don't want to go into spoilers, but of Demi Moore's face in particular on the floor. If you guys have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was some like shit from Rick and Morty. This is not a film that is supposed to make you feel bad or have sympathy for your character. This is a cautionary tale. And I just liked this film in particular because it was just so different and so out there that an actress of this like stature agreed to do it. And I think the substance should be checked out by people who love film. I think it's weird. I think it's weird body horror. Number 5, Late Night with the Devil. I did a video on this movie. I really liked it. Late Night with the Devil is about a fictional 1970s talk show, very similar to that of like Conan or Jimmy Kimmel. And it's about a talk show host who is trying to up his ratings. So they decide to bring in people of the occult because it's Halloween night. And there's just some very interesting things that I really appreciate about this film. It was very similar to that of like Ghostwatch, but obviously it's fictional and everything, where it's presented as if it's an actual show, but there's like these weird things that are happening in the background. We see our talk show host looking towards the side a little bit, as if he's like noticing something outside, like sirens or whatever. So there's things that I just really appreciate about that film. If you want to check out my full-on review of the film, it's on my YouTube channel. But this was just something I really love, the found footage and just like media format. And I really want to see more films like this where it's just like very uncanny, uncomfortable, realist kind of films. I would definitely recommend Late Night with the Devil if you're looking for something different that just is out of the norm in terms of a movie. If you're into talk shows or if you like that format, it's a really good film. Okay, so my number 4, this was actually Lisa's favorite film of the year, The Wild Robot. This was such a good breath of fresh air. Not to get too corny because the movie does take place in nature, but I just love the animation of this. I also talked about this film in a video of mine, and I just love the usage of like paintbrushes and the 2D technology, and it's just a good looking film. I am loving this new evolution of animation that we're exploring. We're utilizing both 3D and 2D technology. And not only that, even if like the animation wasn't up to this scale, it's just a good story. It is probably the most human movie I've seen in a while, and it all revolves around a robot and animals, and it's just a beautiful story. And I don't really want to get into too much spoilers, but I'm going to leave it up to you guys to watch this film. I've talked about it before, but yes, I definitely think this is not only just on my top 10 films of the year, I think it's probably the top animated film of the year, and I think it definitely deserves an Oscar. So good job, Wild Robot. Let's get at it. Okay, so we're approaching my top 3 films of 2024. I'm going to talk about number 3, and it's going to sound a little bit biased because I just talked about an animated film just now. You're probably going to think, why do you think this film is like up higher than The Wild Robot if you think The Wild Robot's going to win Best Animated Film of the Year since this film was animated? Well, it's because this film, it speaks to me. It spoke to me as a kid. It was something that I had yearned for a very long time. Just a good film in terms of like this franchise and what we really have been needing for the past, since like 2007. And that film is Transformers 1. I really was surprised about this film. And yes, the animation in The Wild Robot is much better. But this film in particular is just a film that me as a kid, the kid inside of me, has been waiting for such a long time. This film really got me back into Transformers. I have not really been into Transformers for a good 10 to 15 years because of the Michael Bay films. I just don't think that they really represent what Transformers is all about. As someone who grew up with the shows, I watched Transformers Armada, Transformers Cybertron, and watching this film at the age that I am, I'm almost 30. Holy shit, by the way. This has been something that I've been waiting for a long time. A film that is centered around the Transformers and a film that takes place on Cybertron. I think a lot of us have been waiting for this kind of film ever since Transformers Cybertron, the video game. It's just such an interesting aspect, just kind of like learning more about this war between the Autobots and the Decepticons. And not only that, It's an origin story between Optimus Prime and Megatron and how they were friends. And this movie also showcases how they drift apart. And I think it's done incredibly well given the fact that it does have a bit of a short runtime. You have to believe that these characters are friends at the beginning of the film and then they're not at the end. Like it does it pretty naturally given the fact that I think I would have preferred seeing that drift happen throughout the course of like maybe some years, maybe like a week or two or months. But given the fact that these events happen between a day or two, it does it pretty well for the most part. I do want to see a sequel. So if there's anybody out there who is watching this, please go forth with Transformers 2 or whatever you're calling it, because I think this is a really well done animated film. Okay, number 2, this goes to Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm a Marvel guy. I love the Marvel films. I will acknowledge that they have not been good for a good minute. I am actually like so behind on the Disney Plus shows because I'm just not really into all of this anymore. I'm feeling the fatigue. Like there's a question if superhero fatigue exists, and I think it does, because I think we're watching all this content thinking that like it's gonna warrant something, and we're looking for something in these movies to look forward to in the future, and seeing what they've done over the past 5 years and them just being like, just kidding, we're not doing that anymore. It was just good to see a film that was focused on itself as a film. It wasn't relying heavily on the fact of like, hey, guess what? This is what's coming soon. It relied heavily on the fact that Deadpool is just fucking hilarious. And we get to see, and this is unbelievable, when I heard about this in 2022, I did not believe this, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And he's wearing his yellow costume. This was such an event movie for me in particular, and this was a good opportunity for Lisa because Lisa didn't watch any of the X-Men films growing up. So we actually sat down, we watched all the X-Men films leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine, and it just felt emotional for me in particular, just finally seeing this character that I've loved over the past like over 20 years, 24 years. Holy God, that's right, I'm turning 30 soon. I don't doubt that people on the set were crying because it's something that us nerds have been waiting for. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the movie that does pay homage to the, past Fox movies. So I really liked this film. I thought it was humorous. I think this is a good starting point in terms of like where the MCU needs to go. I'm curious to see where the new Avengers, what's it called? Avengers Doomsday or whatever. I'm curious to see where that goes. And obviously I'm excited for Avengers Secret Wars. So yeah, guys, keep on doing what you're doing. I really, really liked Deadpool and Wolverine. Let's see more. And before we get to number 1, I want to mention this film real quick because I actually just kind of forgot. It's in between my honorable mentions and my top 10 because it's not really a movie. Technically it is. It's an hour-long movie, but it was released on YouTube, so it wasn't at theaters or anything like that. This is something that you can watch on YouTube, and that movie is Milk and Cereal. This was such an amazing found footage film that you can watch on YouTube. It's from the guys that made That's a Bad Idea, and they are known for making comedy skits, but from time to time, they'll make like a horror short out of nowhere for the time of Halloween. And they did one this year, and it was actually the last movie that I watched at my old apartment. Then I moved in with Lisa and everything, and it was just something that I just got incredibly obsessed with, and it really, really inspired me because these were just two guys that just got like a cheap ass camera, and they made this really compelling story about these YouTube pranksters, and it really makes you doubt like the actual plot of the film. You have no idea where it's going because you know that these guys are pranksters, but then as you realize that the film is actually about this, it's like, holy shit, this is actually really disturbing for just two guys that run like a comedy skit channel. If anyone is just like interested in like being inspired as a filmmaker, or anyone who just like wants to watch something creepy, if you're a fan of like the horror genre or found footage, this is a must watch. This was so well done. I want to see more stuff like this. If you guys know of any other horror found footage stuff that I can find on YouTube, like, I don't know, like this or Marble Hornets or anything like that, leave a comment down below. I really want to watch some stuff. Absolutely love this. I would have loved if it was like a feature. I really would have. All right, guys, and my number 1 movie of 2024, that movie is going to be Dune Part 2. So yeah, I actually have a story about this. A buddy of mine had invited me to see the film a week after its release. I wanted to see it immediately, but he really wanted to go to this theater that was 4 hours outside of Atlanta. And it's a theater that's, I think it's like close to Savannah or something. It's definitely like still in Georgia, but it's like the tallest IMAX theater in the United States. And this was such a perfect movie to watch at this theater because I was so captivated by this film. I watched part one. I thought it was good. I just liked the cinematography and the directing of Denis Villeneuve. I can't say his name. He has the most like problematic last name in like Hollywood right now. But I love him as a filmmaker. I'm a huge fan of the film Prisoners and anything else that he's made, like Sicario or Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. He's just made such a name for himself as a filmmaker, and this film really does merit the first one. If you weren't even like really a fan of the first one, like putting the first one and the second one like together as one, it's almost similar to like that of like, okay, if you didn't like Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1, then you see Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2 and it's like the best thing ever. That's the same logic for this. Dune 2 is just like a really, really good film. And yes, it is based on a book, obviously, but like this is like something that I just haven't seen in a while, where it feels original enough where it's not reliant on like a franchise. It's not reliant that it takes place in a universe or there are spin-off films. This is a film in itself, and I just haven't felt like this in a while. And this just feels I don't know, like it feels like that of like Lord of the Rings or Avatar. It's just a film like this that we just haven't received in a while, where the scope of this entire film and the universe that they're presenting and the story itself, I loved. Now, I will admit, I have not read the Dune book. I tried to, but there is just a lot of lore specifically in that book. But after watching Dune Part 2 this year, it made me really want to revisit this and try to read the book again, because this is a very compelling story. And what I loved about it as well is that the character of Paul is clearly not the most perfect character out there. This is a revenge story, but at the same time, you're rooting for him because you have this understanding of where he's coming from, and just the worms. Like, I don't know. It feels like the kind of movie where anybody would make jokes about it. There'd be parodies about it because it is that universal. I absolutely loved Dune 2, and I can't wait to see more from Denis Villeneuve. I can't wait to see more from him and just more from the Dune universe. Am I scared that it's going to be turned into like this franchise? Yes, it already has. There's already a show on Max, but it is just a really good movie in itself. And that's why it's my #1 movie of the year. So yeah, guys, that was my top 10 films of 2024. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment down below what your favorite movies are. Let me know if the movies that you liked didn't make this list. I'm always looking for new movies to watch. And yeah, look forward to more videos on some movies coming up in 2025. I'm so excited. Superman. Let's go. I am very excited for that. James Gunn, please don't let me down. I think from the trailer, I think it looks great. That is probably my most anticipated film of the year. So let's go. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbin Stuckey, and thank you for watching.